meeting for Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. If we would all please rise and pay respects to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, noting of the roll.
Noted, there is a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the moving of item 5, committee reports, down to items removed from the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none. Item 5, approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Colvin. Are there any questions? Hearing none, roll call please.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Item number 6, public comment on items not on the agenda. Members of the public, if there's some items not on the agenda you'd like to address this board with, we take those comments at this time. Seeing none. Item 7, Board of Trustee comments. We started down there last time. Let's start with Trustee Charles.
I don't have any particular comments. I guess the few I have with the arrangements in the committee, I would just say to them a little bit there.
Okay.
I'll tell you one quick comment for, we have Witches Night coming up October 20th. So if, it's Witches Night, it's not Warlock Night, so guys have to stay home. Just a topic about it. Be careful. That's it.
Thank you, Rod. Clerk Wright?
2 items here. Number 1 is thanks to the board for approving that agreement for election services for Oakland County. That is the early voting agreement that we signed up with to coordinate with Addison Township and Orion Township for early voting. It's a 9-day early voting process that will begin on October 28 because Orion Township has an election for the village of Orion, and Deputy Clerk McCullough and Administrative Assistant Richter are going to be participating in the early voting as site supervisors, so they'll be utilized in that capacity for the late days of October, early days of November. This will continue throughout 2024 for that. So that's what's going to be happening on the early voting process. Any more questions from the board or the audience, feel free to contact us. We're more than happy to answer your questions. The other one is in reference to the Northeast Oakland Historical Society. We usually give them a contribution over the past years. We did put in place a request for contribution. They filled out a portion of that contribution, but did not fill out the remaining requirements to provide us with minutes, financial statements, or a year-to-date revenue and expense summary report. So based on not having those items returned to us, they chose to return the check to the township. So at this point, there's no contribution to the Historical Society due to lack of information. So just want to update the board on that. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Ferrari?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Noel?
Thank you, but no thank you.
Trustee Payne?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Colvin?
I just want to clarify with Trustee Charles' statement that lizards and warlocks are welcome at Witches Night, so that's all.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple. One, we've put on social media, we've ran ads in the Oxford Leader, we've talked several times about the Tri-County Internet Survey for receiving who's got weak broadband and internet service in the area. They keep sending me emails and showing us at the lowest point. Maybe people can't get on the internet and fill out the survey, I don't know, but if you know of any homeowners association groups you can get with, or I've reached out to some, to Rattlewood Farms and things, they hold events out there. if you're interested in achieving internet in areas that are underserved, please fill out the survey. Oakland County is taking the charge of that. Commissioner Spiz is sending out surveys, so we're just trying to get people to fill them out. Secondly, you'll see that we are going to have a special meeting. I sent out an email and we will talk about it later tonight. Special meeting on October 25th. October 25th at 6 p.m. We're gonna have a special meeting to hold a public hearing on our special assessment district for our North Area sewer SAD. Other than that, that's it. We'll move on to item number 8. Safety path, first reading. Joe?
Board members, in front of you is our safety path ordinance. A chance to do some revisions. If there's any questions, we'll entertain them now. If not, we'll have a second reading and we'll get that over to the board in November.
Are there any questions for Treasurer Ferrari regarding the safety path ordinance? Trustee,
Well, I have an unrelated question, but it maybe ties in. When there's an issue with some of the safety paths, like obstructions and things, I know it's unrelated to the ordinance. What do we do about that? I'm thinking, for example, on West Drainer, there's some obstructions that block the view. I'm sure Mr. Wright is aware of it. Do
we
do that?
contact Treasurer Ferrari, he's the safety path chair,
Okay,
and he addresses it through a maintenance program.
okay, good deal, thank you.
Okay?
I move to approve.
I'm sorry, Trustee Noel,
Section 4.42-105B,
4.2.105B.
language added to state that the paths depicted in the township master plan will not be eligible for the in lieu of the payment option. I need clarification or understanding that Safety Path has its own master plan, the township has its own master plan, and we're in the midst of starting the development of a revised version for the township. How does this fold in?
I can help you with that one. The township master plan includes the township safety path master plan. The planning commission recommends the safety path master plan, and the board adopts it, and it's included in the master plan. So what happened was there was some confusion over the years, and it was a moving target. In reality, we had to stay with the one that was presented in 2019. So to date, we're sticking with the one that is in the master plan for 2019, and as the new master plan evolves, so will the township safety path master plan.
So, Mr. Chair, the safety path master plan will call out specific areas that are to be not eligible for in lieu of?
Yes,
Our main arteries.
Okay.
yes. All right, any other questions? Seeing none?
I move to approve the first reading of the amendment to Oxford Charter Township's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 42, Street Sidewalks and Other Public Places, Article 3, Safety Paths and Sidewalks, and direct the township clerk to publish said ordinance in accordance with state law, and hereby set the second reading of said ordinance amendment for November 8th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Nold. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Item 9, Fire Department. Oh boy, they're ganging up on us tonight.
Really?
Request to schedule open burn and false alarm ordinance amendments for first reading.
Good evening, board. Brought the fire marshal, DJ Franz, with me tonight because this is his area of expertise, but he's worked closely with Attorney Vasquez from the Kelly firm to revamp and update and make our burn ordinance easier for people to read, understand, and follow, we believe, and make the permitting process easier for everybody to use, and actually for people to become more compliant, actually, by simplifying the process. I'm fighting the cold. He's going to answer most of your questions tonight, though, so have at it with him.
Okay, the change to the ordinance, the red line copy was in the minutes, or in the packet.
Yes.
So if you had a chance to read them, and I'll entertain questions now, but we are only scheduling the first reading at the next meeting. So are there any questions for Fire Marshal Franz on the change in the fire and burning ordinances?
Well, go ahead, John. John's first.
Trustee Noel?
In the last ordinance that we just talked about for the safety path, they talked about ordinance by resolution for fees. We have in this fire ordinance fees. How do we plan to handle?
Fees are for what? I guess I don't know. I think there might be some punitive fees, but those have always been in there.
Alarm fee schedules?
So the alarm fees, now that's a whole, I thought we were just
Yeah,
talking
we're just talking about burn.
burn permits. I don't think there's any fees, other than, if you are in violation. And I think that was original to the ordinance.
If you will, anybody can obtain a burn permit today.
Correct.
And there's no
Yep.
fee for it.
Absolutely, correct.
It's still no,
There's
still
still,
no.
the whole point of this was, our burn permit process is kinda,
Antiquated.
yeah, we don't use it anymore. People call in, it actually kind of overwhelms our system. They call in to get these burn permits that we don't ever inspect. The only time we go out and inspect a burn permit is if we have a call for a violation. So we have all these burn permits coming in, they're calling and renewing their burn permits, kind of for no reason. So we just really want to set the rules out, and you follow the rules. I mean, you're still gonna call, make sure that burning's allowed, and after you follow those rules, if we have an issue after that, then we will do an investigation.
John, your question was?
I'm gonna follow up what you said. That was my second part. I can't find the part with the fees right now, but
Okay.
I understand this is scheduled for the first reading.
So we'll have another chance to address that question. There's no pressure.
No, I pass. Thank
Okay.
you.
Treasurer Ferrari?
BG, instead of going that route, has the fire department consider maybe monitoring these burn permits? Instead of scrapping them?
As opposed, like, how?
Instead of scrapping them. Like, let's say Jack and I call in.
Yep,
We were each gonna do a bonfire or something.
sure.
Shouldn't somebody at your end at least take note of that? So if there's a problem, a neighbor calls, says, hey, what's going on? You guys at least have that knowledge?
Well, that's not how we operate now.
I know.
Essentially, you just call, like, I don't think we have the staff to go out and inspect all the, burn permit areas in the township of every resident.
So anybody can do a burn permit?
Yep,
Without a permit?
correct, yes, and they could now.
They could, that's how it
The
is
rule
now.
hasn't changed. You would just call and say, hey, I need a burn permit, and we would say, okay, here you go.
But should we formalize that process? So you have records of all this stuff? Do we want everybody at the time just burning willy-nilly?
Well, they do that now.
They do that now. We don't have any records of it now under the current system.
That's all we have is you saying that you have a burn permit and you have, there's a phone number attached to it.
Should we try to tighten that up? Instead of
We don't have a problem with it now, so I don't know why. I don't see, I think that would cause, that would overwhelm our staff trying to.
I think that would create a bureaucracy
Correct.
to it.
Correct. If you follow the rules, then you're compliant, as you are now.
I know I had a great discussion with Chief and
I'm all
PJ.
set with that.
I have a burn permit. I have 4 different areas I burn. And according to the burn permit regulations, they're all illegal. But I call it in and I burn. And what happens?
We just don't want, you're right, correct. We don't want you to light your house on fire, we don't want you to light your neighbor's house on fire, so that's why the rules are what they are. For us to go out and inspect every burn, pit in this township would overwhelm our staff.
But isn't that kind of our role?
Um,
Safety, health and welfare of the community?
It is. And as long as people are doing things within the burn ordinance, as it's prescribed within the ordinance, we don't have any problems with it. And people don't have problems with it. The only time we get called out is when somebody is doing something, like recently when we had somebody trying to piecemeal burn a barn every night, after it got dark. Yeah, obviously we went after that, right? But that's how we find out this stuff. If you or Mr. Curtis are gonna have people over this weekend and you have one of either those manufactured fire pits, or as he has a bigger pit further away from the house out in the back of the property, it's your right, as long as you're not burning trash, lumber, construction materials, right? And the only way we find that out is if we get a complaint. And then we will still always go out to any complaint received, right? And if we get there and we find that they're, pardon me, if we find that they're in violation of the ordinance, we actually have the sheriff's deputies come out, they issue a citation in violation of the ordinance, and we extinguish any fire that is out of ordinance regulations, so to speak, right?
Look at it, one in my old house, we had a wooden fence. Neighbor next door said she was tending to it, they had like a fire and like a little burn pit and all that, she was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, she would
She
be in
says she
violation,
would be in violation.
whether she had a burn permit or not, she would be in violation.
Yep.
Right, and then,
Cause they could caught my fence on fire, and they caught my house on fire.
well, sure,
Yeah.
And she's
but
responsible.
like, we aren't going to go out and supervise her if she's having a fire and making sure she does it right the whole time, like, that's on her, right? She's a citizen of this, like, I can't supervise everybody in the township having their fire, make sure they're constantly doing it correctly.
That's why we have an ordinance, and if somebody complains, then we go and we check on the complaints, and we address them as appropriate, right? But even with that, we've gotten complaints, and we go there, and there's nothing wrong. People are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Some people just have neighbor issues.
Yeah.
And that, in all honesty, it seems like that's probably our most common burn complaint, is a neighbor issue. And the people that are actually having a fire, whether it be in one of those little chimney things, or an actual burn pit, or a bonfire, they're doing what they're allowed to do within the ordinance. It's just that it bothers a neighbor, right?
Trustee Charles? Yes.
First thing, you cleared up something for me, because I used to call in.
Yep.
Like, after a while, it's like, why am I bothering to do this kind of stuff?
Sure, and that's still gonna be part of the process. We just want you to call, and you're gonna listen to a message and say you can or you can't. Because, I mean, you may not know that there's a ban on burning.
Like high wind days or
Correct.
drought times,
So that part's gonna stay,
we will still do that.
What's that?
that part's gonna stay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes. Now,
Yep.
yes, it won't be the same automated system, but there will still be a voice recording where you're just calling in to make sure that having a fire is okay.
Or the township maybe can communicate that as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've revamped our website, and the ordinance, the current ordinance is on there. The new ordinance, if adopted, would then be on there. The rules, we would actually well, actually, we do have a kind of a, here's how to burn within the Oxford, within the limits of the Oxford ordinance.
How would you start one of these fires? How would you get it going yourself?
Kindling.
Kindling.
Liquid
Newspaper.
nails.
Newspaper.
Because the ordinance
Okay.
says any liquid, any flammable liquid.
Well, we
Why
never
would you
use
use
liquid.
charcoal
No,
lighter fluid?
Correct.
No, we don't.
You should never use
No.
inflammable liquid.
No, even the charcoal lighter fluid.
No.
Not
Why?
recommended.
Because the problem is, how much is enough?
Well, how much newspaper's enough?
Well,
Yeah, but,
let's not get in the weeds here.
Yeah.
yeah,
Are there any questions on the ordinance at this time? Clerk Wright?
It's more of a comment, the definitions could be put in alphabetical order, that'd be a request.
okay.
Of that.
That's a good one.
And your check and balance is the neighbors, like you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know.
That's all the whole process, point of this wasn't to change anything or recreate the wheel. It was, when I read the ordinance, the way it was written prior, I didn't understand it, so it made it very hard for me to enforce it, and I can't imagine the general public really understood it. And we're trying to eliminate a process that we really don't utilize anymore.
You know, just curiosity too, is, how many calls have you had, how many citations have you written?
We get calls, it depends on the time of year, we get calls, in the fall, we get
We'll get that information for you.
Well, I can tell you, in my time here now, in the 2.5 years I've been here, I know of 2 citations being issued, right? And they were both for gross violations of, one was burning on a day when there's like 60-mile-an-hour winds, right? And he was burning stuff other than just brush. And the other one was actually burning garbage and like garbage bags and just refuse. And that was down in the south end. One was in the north, one was in the south. Those are the only 2 citations that I can recall in my time here so far.
Trustee Noel?
Appropriate phone number might be included in the ordinance.
Okay.
It is in there,
It is in there?
you know.
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Payne, did you have your hand up?
No, it did not.
Okay.
section D1B, open burning regulations.
So, I see it.
That's what the phone number is.
Are there any other questions? Look for a motion to schedule the first reading.
I would like that motion. This is to approve the first reading.
Yeah, I had a question for clarification, because the agenda says request to schedule open burning and false alarm ordinance amendments for a first reading.
To schedule the first reading.
Right, but the motion that is in the packet is treating this as the first reading and scheduling the second reading.
I like Joe's first idea.
We were under the impression that we had asked to have this brought so that we could schedule the first reading for November, a second reading for December, and hopefully have the change enacted for the first of the year.
That was my understanding also.
That's what we
Okay,
asked.
I just need, before somebody makes the motion, I wanted that to be clear.
Yep.
I move to schedule the first reading of the text amendments, the following section of the Township of Oxford, Municipal Code Ordinances, Chapter 26, Section 26-17, and Chapter 30, Article 4, Division 3, Section 30-152, direct the Township Clerk to publish said ordinance, said first reading in accordance with the state law, and hereby state law at our November 8th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Questions? Clerk Wright?
For our first reading, you do not have to publish the said ordinance.
But don't you normally, or no?
No, for the second reading, yes.
Do it this
Attorney Ellis is here, she can clarify.
No, you don't need to publish for the first reading. Publish following the first reading.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Clerk Wright, no. Trustee Charles.
No.
Treasurer Ferrari.
No.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
No.
And Supervisor Curtis.
No.
Try this again. I move to schedule the first reading of the text amendments to the following section of the Township of Oxford Municipal Code Ordinances, Chapter 26, Section 26-17, Chapter 30, Article 4, Division 3, Section 3-12, for November 8th, 2023 Township Board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Colvin. Any questions? Roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Thank you. Anything else from the fire department tonight?
Do we have any questions?
Are you having an open house on Halloween evening?
We are.
We will be hosting cider and donuts at both stations as usual. That will start about an hour, half hour to an hour into trick-or-treating and go till just after trick-or-treating ends so that people can get their full peruse of the village and township candy give out. And
We'll
then
have
come
those
get some
hours.
cider and donuts from us on their way in for the evening, so
We'll
yeah.
have those hours possibly approved at the end of this meeting.
No fire pit?
Item number 10,
Thank you.
Sharp Engineering Report. Board members, in your packet was a report from Engineer Sharp with the updates on all of the township municipal projects. Are there any questions on those projects? Engineer Sharp is out of pocket, and I can help try to answer any of them for you. Hearing none, okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 11, unfinished business. Item A, Trustee Charles asked at the last meeting that we bring this up to the board, single waste hauler update discussion. What I'd like to do is have Attorney Ellis come up and give us a snapshot of where we're at and what we need to do to move forward or backwards or stop or whatever.
Good evening. This board will recall at its meeting back in April that you held a hearing on, to review potential bids for your single hauler. At that time, the board had decided that they thought there may have been some irregularities in the process, and the single hauler subcommittee was authorized to work to prepare a bid, that eventually, it appears that the intent was that eventually it would be rebid, with those irregularities in process having been addressed. That being said, it seems that that never occurred. So now that it's been brought back to the board, my advice is that you give your subcommittee some guidance on what you're looking for, i.e. is this board still interested in moving forward with single hauler? If you are, do you want your single hauler subcommittee to prepare a bid? If so, what's your time frame? I have 90 days in a proposed motion. It can be longer, it can be shorter, whatever this board's prerogative is. And lastly, if you are going to authorize your subcommittee to go re-engage in this process, do you want to give them the authority to re-engage with your single hauler contractor, RRS, who you were previously working with on this process? If you decide to tell your single hauler subcommittee to move forward with a bid, the way that process would look is the township board would receive bids and consider them. And at that time, if it makes sense for the community and it's the board's prerogative to move forward with the single hauler process, you would consider an ordinance at that time. There's been some questions on the process. Should you approve an ordinance first or take in bids first? It is my recommendation that you take in bids first, because once you approve that ordinance, you've authorized single hauler in this community. You may or may not want to move forward with single hauler once you receive bids and you have an understanding of what that will look like for your community. So before you have a couple motions and you have a couple things to discuss, i.e. as far as what the board wants to do moving forward with single hauler. I'm available for questions.
Okay, I'll entertain questions. Treasurer Farrar, I saw your hand go up.
My thinking on this is we had that public meeting, there's a lot of comments that were brought up by our community. My pitch would kick that and those comments back to the committee, take them under advisement. Was there any merit into breaking it into zones? There's like probably a good 10 to 12 questions asked. Kick it back to them, let them address all that, then bring it back to us for whether we want to go further. Myself, there's probably, I don't know if you guys agree, there's some good questions that were raised. I would hate to go ahead and people say, what about this question I asked? We need to consider it. Kick it back to them.
Trustee Charles?
Well, I somewhat disagree with Mr. Ferrari that the meeting there represented the community. There's a small number of people there, so that's not accurate at all. Not to say we would ignore what those people said, but that's not a representation of 20,000 people. And I want to clarify, your guidance would be to have bids go out first, then do an ordinance. Is that what you're?
Correct, and that may allow this board to answer some questions the community may have, i.e. how the cost may be a significant benefit to the community.
Now, could we do that simultaneously?
Yes, so you'll see from my letter, I have your prior timeline that was set on the prior, how we were moving forward on this previously. And in that, you'll know that on the date that bids were to be considered by this board, a first reading of the ordinance was also being considered at that time. Neither went forward, but we would follow it, we would reset, obviously we would set out the timeline, but it would be a similar timeline as to your previous, as far as process.
I think I'll make a quick comment, and then Mr. Wright, but I think we all feel like we need to move forward some way. That's the objective. You can't just let it sit there. It's been doing for the last couple of months. That's where we want to go with this tonight. Just go
Clerk Wright?
Yeah, I don't know, I was, didn't know whether trustee Noel or trustee Payne had comments, but I'll comment. Going back to April 12th, that was an event that really spoke, as trustee Charles said, from those that were adamant about either keeping what they had, was curious about what needed to be, what they wanted to see in a single waste hauler, and just a lot of questions came out of it. We have those questions right here. It's a pretty thick packet. So with that in mind, there's several things that I want to bring forward. Is number one, is the board still comfortable with the committee members that's there to move forward? Number two is in the proposed motion, I'm thinking that it almost has the appearance of a quorum with the board if you're going to include the supervisor with the committee. That's one of my concerns.
I can address that.
Okay.
So it says in conjunction with the supervisor and the township attorney, meaning that the township supervisor and myself would have sign off on the bid before it goes out, it doesn't imply that the supervisor will be involved in those negotiations or that
Okay.
writing the actual bid, yes.
All right, good,
Thank you.
good. The other issue is that we are in the process of revising our procurement policy,
Mhm.
and I don't know where that plays into going forward with, going out for bids. And then in the process, you change, or the board changes what that procurement policy is gonna look like to go out for those bids.
So if you put your bid out before your procurement policy is enacted, your new procurement policy, you follow your current procurement
Okay.
policy that's in effect.
Okay. And referring to the ordinance, it's almost as if, I mean, for me as a committee member, it's almost like we were to have an ordinance in place before we proceeded out with the RFP. Now it seems like we're going for the RFP and then the ordinance is gonna follow. So I don't know if that's something that should be done in conjunction, where you pursue the first and second reading and get your RFP in, and then you can tie your RFP back to the ordinance if you decide to choose a hauler.
Correct, so my recommendation is, as a matter of policy, you wanna see what that pricing's gonna be, right, when you get your bids in. You wanna open your bids and say, do we even wanna move forward with single hauler now that we see what the pricing is, the available pricing is? You don't want to adopt an ordinance before you're at that point, so my advice would be at least do your first reading after you've opened bids and you've determined this makes sense cost-wise for our community. You don't wanna pass an ordinance and then open your bids and say, well, this doesn't make any sense for us, it's not something we're interested in, and now you wasted
Okay.
all this time and expense going through first and second reading.
Okay. And then in reference to the RRS, our consultant,
Mhm.
we've already paid for the first three tasks, is what it was called, like that. So indirectly, we'd be down to the fourth task, but in a sense, we're starting over. So I don't know how much more involvement we would need from the consultant, because we have the database of the information that's been provided up to this point. I defer to Trustee Payne and Trustee Knoll whether the thought would be to re-entertain paying the consultant to redo what he's already done.
Well, that's ultimately a board decision, but Treasurer Ferrari raised a good point earlier, which is there's some questions about what districts should be included, what shouldn't. You did have your consultant walking you through this RFP process in the past. So there may be some questions that come up from the public, from this board, from the subcommittee, that I'm not able to answer as your legal counsel because I'm not a professional resource consultant or recycling consultant. So in that vein, you may want to re-engage them, but ultimately that's a township decision. If you feel you have all the information you need, you have all the resources you need, we're gonna use our prior RFP as presented. You may decide that you don't need to re-engage RRS, but there is gonna be some process as well, remember, with rolling out the ordinance if you decide to go with single hauler, that you may want to utilize their help with as well. So ultimately, that's a township policy decision. That being said, I don't claim to be a recycling expert, so there may be some questions in this process that I can't answer as your legal counsel.
Just a minute, is there any questions down here? Trustee Knoll.
Within our RFP, I'll clear something up. We did call out in bold letters that we are under the development of an ordinance,
Mhm.
and that they would be required to facilitate that ordinance if they were the winning bid.
Correct.
So that's in the RFP.
Okay.
I do not agree with this restart plan motion that you presented. The Waste Disposal Committee has not met since April 12th, 2023, the Township Board meeting, and therefore needs a voice in this activity. The request for proposal within the 90 days has not been reviewed by the committee, and there has been discussion regarding RFP changes that are needed. I'd be in favor of asking the Waste Disposal Committee to conduct a restart evaluation, I like that word restart that you used, of what is needed to move forward. The topics would include RFP restructuring and changes, resource recycling services contracts, availability of their business, the schedules, ordinance approval timing, and committee members' continuations. And then I added April 12th questions. That would be what I would be interested in seeing done.
Thank you. Trustee Charles, you had one more question?
Yeah, just going back to the timing or protocol of this, could the committee then, before this next meeting, make that determination as to the necessity for doing this in one package? Is that a committee thing, or does that need to come to the board?
They can make they're a recommending body, so they always have to come to the township board for final approval, but you can request that the subcommittee, the board can request that the subcommittee make that recommendation to the board of trustees
At the same meeting?
at the same meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Look for a motion.
I have this motion, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I motion that we would ask the Waste Disposal Committee to conduct a restart evaluation of what is needed to move forward. Topics would include RFP restructuring and changes, resource recycling services contract and availability, schedules, ordinance approval timing, committee members' continuation, and April 12th questions that were posed.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by trustee Noel and a second by treasurer Ferrari. Are there any questions?
I do. Well, Catherine's first.
Yes, Catherine. Trustee Noel, Colvin. Sorry.
Can we require this, committee to report at the next meeting, at the November meeting?
I would add that to it. I think that can happen.
Well, then we have to vote down the first motion and add the second to it.
Let's do it.
Now you gotta remember. Go ahead. I'll call the roll.
Trustee Colvin,
No.
trustee Payne,
No.
trustee Noel,
No.
treasurer Ferrari,
No.
clerk Wright, no, trustee Charles,
No.
and supervisor Curtis.
No.
Try again, Jen.
Is it November 9th?
I think it's
November 8th.
November 8th.
One more time. Thank you, board. I make a motion that the Waste Hauler Disposal Committee to conduct a restart evaluation of what is needed to move forward. Topics would include RFP restructuring / changes, resource recycling services contract availability, schedules, ordinance approval timing, committee members' continuation, and April 12th questions. And this will be reported back to at the next township board meeting, November 8th,
2023.
2023.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by treasurer Ferrari, trustee Noel, and a second by treasurer Ferrari. Are there any questions on the motion? Yes, sir.
I have concern about the topics and the ability to produce by November 8th. That's my concern.
Then you
Not only
come
that-
back at the November 8th meeting and tell us you
Correct.
couldn't get it done.
Well, I don't like saying that, but
Well,
It happens.
that's what it is.
I don't like saying that.
Trustee Charles.
A couple comments. Would it be better than if you weren't on the committee? Would that help?
You know, if somebody wants to take the spot, they can do that, but I'm not saying I'm not willing to do it. I'm just looking at special meeting, other meetings, water and sewer meetings, those types of things to prepare for to actually make this all work.
But I
At
have to
least
say,
from my schedule.
no, I get it.
Hold on. Trustee Payne?
No, just go ahead. Never mind.
Okay.
No, I mean, basically, I want to say this, I think to move it along to the next meeting would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's it.
The committee will talk about it, say that.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
And this
Roll
is-
call.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Noel,
Yes.
trustee Payne,
Yes.
trustee Charles,
Yes.
trustee Colvin,
Yes.
treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
and supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Motion carries. See you next month. Okay, here we are. Item 11B, North Area Sanitary Sewer SAD Resolution to set a public hearing. Board members, you may recall, March 9th of 2022, we held our first public hearing. On April 13th, the resolution was to move forward with our sanitary sewer special assessment district. However, over the course of the previous year, the cost estimates have exceeded the 10%. Therefore, pursuant to state law, a new hearing must be afforded to the public and record owners of the properties to be assessed. You remember the original cost was $2,825,000, has now increased to $3,520,000, with a construction estimated cost of $2,960,000. $62,997. Due to the cost increase by law, the township has to redo its first public hearing. The resolution sets the public hearing for October 25th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Are there any questions?
I move to approve the North Sanitary Sewer District Resolution Number 1 as presented. Hereby set the public hearing to your objections to the proposed improvement project, the petition for the district, on October 5th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Township Hall, 300 Dunlap Road, Oxford, Michigan, 48371.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Charles. Are there any questions? Trustee Colvin.
That's October 25th, so.
Yep, 25th.
October 25th, yes ma'am. 6 p.m. Yes. Any other questions?
No.
Roll call?
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Item 12A, Great Pines Manor subdivision paving special assessment district. Clerk Wright?
The Great Pines Manor subdivision has requested the Township Board consider a special assessment district for repaving of their streets. They have presented petitions to the township. Those petitions have been confirmed through the qualified voter file with their registered signature for their voting card there. This map here that you're seeing is the signatures that have been secured. There's 25 lots in the subdivision, 17 signed, and 8 of them did not sign. So now the next step is to authorize the engineer to actually start the process of determining the boundary lines, location, and cost estimate. So with that, I'll move to authorize Sharp Engineering to determine the special assessment district boundary area, location, and cost estimate for the purpose of paving the streets in Great Pines Manors subdivision.
Second.
I have a motion by Clerk Wright, a second by Trustee Payne. Any questions? Trustee Charles?
Are the cost of Engineer Sharp built into the end cost of this?
Yes.
Okay, and then how do we determine interest rate on this?
Go ahead.
Well, what will happen is once the roll is confirmed in the last SAD resolution, the board will be able to set that interest rate
Okay.
at that time.
And in terms, another question, I guess, second. So this isn't first, this precedent has already been set, right? We've done this many, many times over the past years, so.
Not many, many times. It's been done before.
Okay. All right, good enough.
Treasurer Ferrari,
Oh, we just haven't done it for a private road.
what is your question?
Oh, Rod had already asked my question.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. 12B, Zoning Board of Appeals, bylaws consideration of approval. Trustee Payne.
Board members, the zoning board of appeals met and reviewed our current bylaws and came up with 2 small minor changes. As you see there, one is to make sure that the member of a planning commission or township board can serve as a chairperson. Previously, it had said that we cannot serve as the chairperson. And then the other change is to make sure that the terms for office are no more than 2 consecutive terms for chairperson, vice chair, treasurer, or secretary. So with that, I move to approve the zoning board of appeals bylaws adopted on September 11th, 2023 to be effective immediately.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Trustee Payne and a second by Trustee Charles. Are there any questions? Clerk Wright.
Yeah, I went through this and I got authorization to contact the attorney through Supervisor Curtis, and a couple things that stood out to me that I got confirmation on was in section 2D, it talked about recording secretaries,
Mm-hmm.
and wrong spot there.
2D?
Sorry about this.
2 terms of office, section 1. You said section 2D.
Recording secretary, about this recording secretary.
You said 2D? Keep
That's
going.
not it.
We're not amending
That's
that.
1D.
Yeah, secretary. It says such duties may be performed by an employed recording secretary. Currently, with the township, all our secretaries are independent contractors. And the recommendation, this is Attorney McAdamy, she said, I'm fine with this change. So,
But we're not amending that, I don't think.
not in your motion, you're not.
It just says an employed recording secretary, it doesn't say who's recording them, who's employing them.
So, such duties may be performed by an employed recording secretary.
The
What's your
employed
question?
secretary is being employed by the ZBA.
I guess maybe I'm splitting hairs, I don't know, but I'm thinking, you know.
Most of our,
If you're employing somebody, you're gonna give them a W-2.
okay, you're splitting hairs then.
Okay.
Employed, contracted, or subjected to doing the duties of. I guess that's what I'd be looking at.
Okay.
We could ask Attorney Ellis.
You could. You're the attorney contact.
The word employed, is that bad? Does that indicate the recording secretary is employed by the township or is employed as a person doing a job?
I think it's a broad enough definition that it doesn't indicate that they are a W-2 receiving employee of the township. I think it's a wide enough definition that it meets the standard of
How stated.
what you're trying to attempt,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And the IRS has a 16-point test on 1099 versus W-2 if you're interested.
Well,
Okay, what's your next question, Clerk Wright?
I will not even approach it.
Okay.
I'll just let it ride.
We want you charged up for that committee.
We have a motion on the floor.
Yes, we do.
A roll call.
Trustee Colvin,
Yes.
trustee Noel,
Yes.
trustee Payne,
Yes.
clerk Wright, yes, trustee Charles,
Yes.
treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
and supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Item 12C, mobile food establishment ordinance amendments. Supervisor Curtis. 2 items were mentioned in the past meetings. One was brought up from our township building official, ordinance officer, and one was brought up here. The length of time a mobile food establishment can stay in one location is item number 1. And item number 2, the issue of the required safety inspection by the Oxford Fire Department if the mobile food establishment was already inspected by another local fire department. Board members, we have local food truck owners in Orion. They're going to the Orion Fire Department. They are getting their sticker as all the fire controls have been met. They come up to Oxford, they're asked to do it again, pay another form, get another sticker. It's basically the same inspection. We already require them to get a health inspection through the county. Everybody does, it's universal throughout the county. But here we have food trucks coming to Oxford that are inspected in Orion, or Oxford food trucks going to Waterford and they're inspected in Oxford. Waterford requires them to get stuck. We're a working municipality with Orion and Oakland right now to eliminate some of these duplications of effort. We're not trying to hit each food truck $100 in every community for our fire department to inspect the trucks over and over.
Is Matt good with that?
Well, we can entertain Matt if he wants to come up and ask his question.
He's good with it, I'm good with it.
My concern with that would be, in the case of Orion, yeah, our ordinance and their ordinances are practically identical. But I couldn't tell you what Waterford's ordinance looks like, or the city of Detroit's. And I don't know. Do they all require the same things we do? Do they all require wheel checks? Do they all require the generator to be placed at a, I don't know. Do they all require that the hood system have a suppression system? do some just require that they have a K-rated extinguisher handy, available to extinguish a fire should one, I don't know.
So what we would do then, before we would entertain that, is look at those ordinances before we included those communities. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I would just want something that we know is meeting at least the same standard that we are.
Okay, that would be, it doesn't need to be in the motion, but we will do that to make the ordinance amendment more palatable.
So I gotta do what, number one?
What?
I'm sorry.
Trustee Charles?
So I'm glad you brought it up, because when I looked at the word local, I thought the same thing. Maybe it's because sitting next to Mr. Wright and I'm picking these little things apart, you know, I blame him. But no, I agree, and what's local, could be anything, could it be Kalamazoo, you know?
No,
And then,
we will identify local, we will identify the departments that have the same inspection as Oxford's. We're concerned with us, mostly Orion and Oxford, because we interchange so.
well, anyhow, if I can go ahead then, what I would look at, if you're saying put a list together, should that be part of this here? Because if I have this mobile
Yes.
food thing, and I look
Yes.
at your ordinance and it says local, and I say, well, geez, local could be Kalamazoo or
We will-
Washtenaw
we
County.
will- We will include the communities that we will be like.
That would be my only other then concern would be is,
You have to read them all.
verifying that a food truck that comes in to say, I don't, that sits out by Burdick Street Equipment again, or well, actually that's a bad one because it's in the village, right?
Seymour Lake Park?
Seymour Lake Park, right, exactly. How do we know who has been inspected and hasn't if we haven't had some kind of notification? We'd have to have some type of notification of who's being allowed in then.
Right.
Because
How do you get
otherwise, we're
notified
going
now?
out the day of and having to, are we gonna have to then go and check them on a day of inspection thing again?
Before we write this ordinance, we will address those concerns, because as directed right now, you're not told every food truck that goes everywhere in the community. You're told of the ones that are there, and you go out and do it. We're gonna tell you, based on what you give us, as the ones you will accept.
Yep, okay.
So,
Fair? Trustee Noel first.
We have a permit they're supposed to have, so that could be your checks and balances.
Correct. They come in, they make application, we set up an appointment, we do the inspection of their truck or their trailer, whatever the case may be. Give them the ground rules of what we expect from them once they're set up on a site, and then, then they're good to go.
The same requirement as Orion.
so then going back to attorney, do you feel that?
Ask me the question.
Okay. The attorney supervisor then, do we have the capability of communicating with all these other communities, whatever you want to define local as, to make sure
I'm
we have
meeting with
a list?
all of them next week, Monday, and we're talking about this subject.
And this is like Oakland County, state of Michigan, or
No,
what?
just Oakland County.
Okay. So then in the ordinance, it could say Oakland County Fire Department.
It could say Lake Orion Fire Department, Orion Township Fire Department. It could say Oakland Township Fire Department are the only three that we allow no inspection by Oxford Township.
So some reciprocity, and they would do the same thing.
Correct. Orion is looking at doing the same thing, because the food truck vendors, food establishment vendors, are going between our two communities and having to schedule an inspection here, and they just got one the previous Friday in Lake Orion. So it's like we're trying to make it easy for them, and
Yeah, our biggest concern, and as Orion's would be, I can guarantee I can speak for them on this, is that that the suppression systems that are in place for their hood systems and for their manual fire extinguishers we both require the same stuff, and it just makes sense. Some communities may not, and that would be our biggest concern. So, yeah.
okay. We will amend the ordinance with the direction of the fire chief's recommendations, looking at other communities' requirements for their food truck licensing. in our communities. Treasurer Ferrari?
That is very important, but please don't lose sight of number one either.
Oh, no, number one is critical because
Well, that's the reason I brought it up, yeah.
That's a real important one too.
number one is critical, yes.
I move to authorize the Kelly firm to review and propose possible amendments to the mobile food establishment ordinance, present them for consideration of a first reading at the November 8th, 2023 Charter Township of Oxford Board of Trustees regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Trustee Charles.
What are some examples of reasonable timeframes that would be possibly included in this?
What do you mean reasonable timeframes?
Well, I mean, we're talking 24 hours, 48 hours, 6 weeks, 6 months.
November 8th.
You'll know on November 8th.
Well, I mean, right now, what's out there is what would be, what are other,
Right now,
you
it's
call it other
20
communities, what are other communities doing?
Right now, we are assuming it's 24 hours, and we have one there that's been there for 2 years.
Okay.
So a recommendation would be,
If I may,
yes,
there are, like, as if we had the Seymour Lake celebration, if the event lasted for a period of 2 weeks, right? You could allow that person or that truck to set up for each weekend or something like that under the same permit. That would be allowable for a special occasion type of thing that you guys could work in.
And that's why I
We're
brought it
not-
up, because
hold
that's
on,
a very
hold on,
clear.
stop. We're not talking about the permit. We are talking about the safety inspection only in that instance. The location establishments are ones that sit on the corner of M24 and Metamora Road for 2 years.
Well, I'll disagree, it says right here, the length of time.
The length of time a mobile food establishment can stay in one location.
Right. And what I said is, what are some examples we've seen?
We've got one that's out there 2 years, and we've got one that's sat there for a weekend. When the amendment comes back, it will be palatable to the community and to the ordinance officer. Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Yes, Clerk
I
Wright.
know last year when the township and the fire department handled this simultaneously on the application, it would require the applicant to indicate how long they'd be at that particular venue. So I don't know if that's something that still is in place or not, but they would confirm.
That's where I guess I was addressing with Trustee Charles and the chief. The difference between the permit and what we allow, the permit is, Seymour Celebration is 5 days. The permit's gonna state, we're gonna be at the Seymour Celebration for 5 days.
Yep.
The length of time is, you're not gonna be sitting there longer than permitted. The ones that are there for 2 years aren't permitted,
That's the
but we
reason.
don't have an ordinance to get rid of it.
Correct.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Roll call.
Trustee Colvin,
Yes.
trustee Charles,
Yes.
trustee Noel,
Yes.
trustee Payne,
Yes.
treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
clerk Wright, yes, and supervisor Curtis.
Yes, sorry about the back and forth on that one. It's a little, he didn't make it clear when he wrote that up. Supervisor Curtis. Item 12D, zoning ordinance 67A, text amendments for noise regulation. Trustee Noel?
Board members, the planning commission is forward for its first reading of zoning ordinance 67A to amend and accessory generator noise within the township. I move to schedule a first reading of the text amendment to zoning ordinance 67A, section 10.1J at the November 8, 2023 Charter Township of Oxford Board of Trustees regular meeting.
Second.
A motion by Trustee Noel, and a second by Treasurer Ferrari. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
clerk Wright, yes, trustee Noel,
Yes.
trustee Payne,
Yes.
trustee Charles,
Yes.
trustee Colvin,
Yes.
supervisor Curtis.
Yes. 12E, employee health insurance funding. Clerk Wright?
Yeah, this is an annual renewal of our insurance coverages, and in your packet, you'll see that the township must decide whether to fund it on a hard cap, an 80-20 plan, or to opt out and decide how much they want the employees to contribute, if anything at all, on that. So with that, I'll move that the Charter Township of Oxford exercises the opt-out provision, which allows the local unit of government, the Charter Township of Oxford, to determine the contribution amount for healthcare coverage for the 2023-2024 plan year.
I will second that.
A motion by Clerk Wright, a second by Treasurer Ferrari. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry, any questions? Roll call?
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes. Item 12F, Employee Health Insurance Renewal. Clerk Wright?
Okay, now that we've opted out, now it's the ability to renew the plans we have in place. And those plans are the current HRA PPO 1500 plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield, plus the plan for retirees on the Plan 250 Platinum PPO for Community Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Board members, the motion we've got here, I'm only gonna make a change to it in the second paragraph. That it's gonna be just one pot, there'll be no distinction between co-insurance and all other HRA 213D plan expenses. To make it easier to administer and to be fair for everybody. I move that Oxford Township renew the Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance for Group 007011799, Division 0000, Oxford Fire Department, Group 007011799, Division 0002, Oxford Township employees, the Blue Cross Blue Shield Community Blue HRA PPO Platinum 1500 plan, effective December 1, 2023. Authorize Barons, Hendricks, and Stewart to forward the appropriate paperwork to Blue Cross Blue Shield to activate the Blue Cross Blue Shield Community Blue PPO Platinum 1500 plan. All members enrolled on the Blue Cross Blue Shield Community Blue HRA PPO Platinum 1500 plan shall contribute 5% of the premium cost, effective December 1, 2023. Also, the Charter Township of Oxford shall fund a health reimbursement arrangement 213D plan, account effective January 1, 2024, and cover any additional expenses incurred, including but not limited to deductibles, co-insurance, emergency room visits, and prescription drugs. There shall be no distinction between co-insurance and all HRA 213D plan expenses. Further, Oxford Township shall use Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance for Group 007011799, Division 0001, Oxford Police Retiree, and Group 007011799, Division 0003, Oxford Township Fire Police Retiree, the Blue Cross Blue Shield Community Blue PPO Platinum 250 plan, effective December 1st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. That was gonna be funny and have you read it again, but I won't. Are there any questions? Trustee Payne?
Yes, this second paragraph, is this a new benefit that we're going to cover additional costs, additional expense?
Well, basically, Rich, we have the one pot and we have another pot for co-insurance. Instead of having the two separate pots, it'd be one pot.
There would be no additional expense, they're just merging the two pots.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, was that second Trustee Knowles?
Yes.
And, no other questions, roll call?
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
And Supervisor Curtis?
Yes. I'm gonna hit you with the hammer if you do this wrong now. Item 12G, Boulder Point Golf Course Tunnel Structural Engineer Authorization, Safety Path Committee.
Board members, there's a chance that we may be able to connect the safety path with a tunnel underneath M24. It's been offered to us. We want to take a look at whether it's structurally sound. So we'd like to basically go ahead to see whether we take it or not to make sure it's going to meet our needs. So I think it behooves us to kind of take a look at it first before we proceed.
You know, it's connecting two safety paths, and we were given the, before we agree to take the tunnel, we have to prove it's sound and structurally good, number one. Number two, we've been given the authority to have the two safety paths connected on both sides of M24. So with that consideration, we're asking the board to fund the structural engineering of the tunnel.
I'll make a motion to waive the Oxford Township procurement policy, authorize SME to proceed with the structural integrity report on the existing tunnel that currently runs beneath M24 for potential future safety path connection in the amount of $12,600. These funds are to be expensed to 297-852-821-000.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. I see a question. Trustee Noel?
The fund 297, what fund is it?
Safety path.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Margie?
Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I think.
Oh, yes, Trustee Charles.
This is just to clarify having it investigated, for lack of another term, it's not to approve it, right?
Right.
With that said, I understand that part, then, good. I'm glad to hear that the possibility, because this hasn't gone through yet, would be connecting safety paths, because I didn't want to, would it be right now, it'd just be a dead end, which would make no sense. So that was a good point. The thought here, this is going forward, not necessarily with this particular resolution. Would it be, if we're going to use it for a safety path, would we want something that eventually that would say no golf carts, because you can't get both through there at the same time?
We are right now just,
I know we're just looking into it.
thank you.
I get it, but I just want to make sure it's in our thoughts as we go forward,
It is in our thoughts.
in our prayers.
Yes, in
Okay.
our prayers. I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
Trustee Payne,
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles,
Yes.
Trustee Colvin,
Yes.
Trustee Noel,
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. I just want to talk about that for a minute. The only reason we're augmenting our procurement policy is we went out rapidly to all the structural engineers in the state of Michigan, and we got one response. So just bear that in mind. Item number 12H, Charge EV is the name of the company, LLC, Charging Station Agreement. Board members, I sent an email out with the correct agreement, where I removed Seymour Lake Park from the agreement, as they are gonna take their resolution to their board and commission and handle their chargers on their own. What I'm asking is for us to engage in an agreement with Charge LLC at no cost to the township, the installation of the charging station in our parking lot for EV vehicles. The total cost will be bore by the Charge EV company, and we will share in the revenue, if there's any, with Charge EV. Any questions?
I move to approve the revised agreement for Charge EV LLC, charging station agreement with Charge EV LLC, and authorize the township supervisor to execute the same.
Second.
A motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Trustee Noel.
The Kelly firm was very kind to point out how the public will be charged for that.
Yes.
Do you have any recollection if that came up during our meeting with them?
No, there's no set price right now.
Okay.
Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin,
Yes.
Trustee Payne,
Yes.
Trustee Noel,
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari,
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles,
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes, thank you. Board members, item number 12I, I'll handle this one too, Water and Sewer Committee. Willow Lake Pressure Reducing Valve Engineering Design Approval. Willow Lake Pressure Reducing Valve needs to be replaced at the Willow Lake current PRV location. With the pressures that the water tower has on the effect of downstream, this has been a known situation for how many years? 20 years. We're now getting around to saying we can't blow any more faucets off. So, we're asking for engineer Sharp to design the PRV and not to exceed the amount of $100,000.
I move to approve a not to exceed amount of $100,000, authorize Sharp Engineering to proceed with engineering design for the upgrades to the pressure reducing valve located at the Willow Lake subdivision. This $100,000 amount is to be expensed to the water fund account 591-598-821.000, engineering fees general.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Any questions from the board members?
I have a question. Is it 598?
No, it says 591, right?
591, what are the next three?
Hold on. 591-538-821.
Thank you.
Any questions? Roll call?
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes, and Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Oh, me again. Item 12J, 1125 Woodbriar Court Water Loss Invoice Adjustment Request. Board members, this is an additional request for water loss invoice adjustment from Oakland County. A citizen at 1125 Woodbriar had a water leak at the sprinkler line, and the bill was way above what they normally paid. I'm gonna pull it up right now. It was, where was the amount? Yeah, $850.71. The adjustment amount totaled a $368.05 credit. After we took the normal adjustment of the bill out, we agreed to pay. The Water and Sewer Committee recommended that we pay 50% of the difference.
I move to adjust the water bill dated August 8th, 2023, for the property located at 1125 Woodbriar Court due to reported water loss with a credit in the amount of $368.05, representing 50% of the difference of the original bill amount, $850.71. The adjusted bill amount, $114.62. The revised water bill due for 1125 Woodbriar Court is $482.66. Any future requests for water loss adjustments will be addressed on a case-by-case basis.
Second, I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Supervisor Curtis. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. 12K. I'll take that one again. Koenig Materials request to connect to Oxford Township water system. Board members, a letter in the packet from Kemp Building and Development requesting to connect the new building at 1950 Lakeville Road for Koenig Materials. The water request is for the new office, for the bathrooms in the new office, and fire suppression in the building. This is not putting Koenig Materials in the water and sewer district. This is only allowing them to utilize the pre-installed sewer tap or water tap to fire suppress the building and potable water.
Water sewer was okay with it?
Water and sewer is recommending this.
I move to approve the request from Kemp Building and Development Company that Koenig Materials be allowed to connect to the Oxford Township water system to install a water line to their new construction building for use in the building and to include fire hydrants, fire protection, and domestic use.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Again, they are not in the water and sewer district, and we're just hooking up their building. Roll call?
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes, and Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Board members, the following motion is offered to confirm the Halloween trick-or-treat hours for 2023 in Oxford Township. I discussed this with Joan Medor today. The village council approved last night the same hours.
I move to set the Halloween trick-or-treat hours for Oxford Township from 6 PM to 7:30 PM on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023.
I'll second that.
Whoa. I'm gonna give this one, Treasurer Ferrari moved, Trustee Charles seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, hearing none. Item 12M, CDBG 2024 through 2025 funding discussion.
Board members, was brought to my attention that you guys may be interested in looking at different projects that Block Grant can fund. Attached, or in a separate packet, has different things that are available. If any ideas or anything, let me know. Right now, we have people on a waiting list for mobile home, mine home repair. That should get us maybe another year or two through. And then after that, we'll probably open for new projects. If you have anything to suggest, or even this year, let me know and we'll get it going.
You know, this discussion was asked by the board, how come, who gets to choose? Well, Treasurer Ferrari is now seeking that input. So if you have any input as to what the CDBG funds go through, please, you can copy me and send them to Joe.
Okay.
Okay? Item 13, items removed from the consent agenda for action or discussion. Board members, I ask the committee and representative reports be pulled from the consent agenda just so we can talk about it. We have a lot of committees. Some are active throughout the year, some are once a year, some are ending, some are ongoing. However, we got reports, we didn't get some from, and I'm gonna go through, and we're not complaining, we're just talking as to why. CDBG, we don't, no one's met, tonight would be the first one, there wouldn't be any meeting committee report for that. Gravel inspection, that's scheduled for October 18th. I should have said in a slip and said, no meeting has been October 18th, you know, it's my fault, I didn't do it. Hazardous waste, no has. You know, that was held, what, last weekend?
Yeah, but that's finishing up.
So next month we'll have that in there. North Oakland Transportation, 2 board members here sit on that. We had no meeting minutes or no committee report. Oxford Area Cable TV, we had nothing from them. Oxford Addison Youth, Oxford Downtown Development, Planned Unit Development Committee, is there even one anymore? Southeast Michigan Council of Governments and the union negotiations, which is understandable. We haven't had any of those. The ZBA. What we're doing with these committee reports and representative reports, we're actually learning what's going on in the committees, but we're also providing them for audit trails in our payroll department. When a member goes to a committee meeting, if you didn't have a meeting, if you look at the committee reports, they clearly call out, a meeting was held this date, it's just another avenue of audit trail for payroll. So, good job, we're gonna get better at it, it's better information, if you read it in your packet, it's full of what's going on in our community. I don't think that needs any motion or anything to approve it, it's just in the packet. Moving on, 14, public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wants to make a comment? Seeing none, Board of Trustees comments. Trustee Colvin.
I have no comments right now.
Trustee Payne.
When I attended the MTA Professional Development Conference last week, one of the vendors there was a web designer, and we have talked about looking to redesigning our website. This company has done Addison's website, and they've also done, I guess, our Parks and Rec website. So, you know, I don't know if there's a committee looking into this, who's looking into this, but if you need or want that information, I have it.
If I may, Treasurer Ferrari offered to take that under his wing.
Give it to me, I'll pass it along.
Was that STG?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty sharp.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Want to comment or not?
No, I'm gonna,
I'm all set.
Trustee Noel?
Thank you, Linda, thank you, thank you.
I'm all set.
Clerk Wright?
Yeah, just going back to the fire alarm ordinance, and I didn't get a chance to
The
go in there.
fire, what?
The fire alarm ordinance, an open burning. But anyway, there's maybe, this is, it's just a comment.
Okay,
My
just a comment.
My comment is, actually it's a question. I'm curious on the exhibits, if they're gonna be part of the packet for November, that's my comment.
Okay,
They're resolutions and fee schedules. So that's my comment.
we'll address that in your comment, okay? Is that it?
Yep.
Trustee Charles?
Let me catch my breath first. Anyhow, going back to what Marge said about, I agree emphatically about looking at a different website to be played. I think we need to upgrade ours, change it, and I like what I saw from that company. Addison uses them, and as she said, Parks and Rec uses them. It doesn't have to be them necessarily, I'm not endorsing them, I'm just saying, we need to make some changes for our website, and there's somebody right there that's done it locally that looks very professional. So, my comment as well, okay?
All right, I have two comments. Clerk Wright, how many items did we not put on this agenda tonight?
Well, probably about, for the resolutions that we left off for next month, probably about 15 there.
16, we added enough. We have left 16 items off this agenda that we have been working on, 16 plus the 20 that are on here. We're doing our job. We're working hard and consistently and sharp. But we almost entertained having a scheduled second meeting. But what we're gonna do is our next October 25th meeting, we will have a couple of those items on there so that we can continue to move forward. But we have a lot of items that are pressing our community. I wanted to update you on, we have hit over 1,000 building permits in September. October 1st, we had over 1,000 building permits, and it's not stopping. 3 pre-construction meetings have hit here. Our hospital emergency medical care set the final beam last week, and they're going full speed ahead to get this done. I'm meeting with developers and landowners daily, and things that are coming here, we keep getting more and more. I just want to let you know, you're not getting half of what this board would be doing. Yes, Trustee Payne.
Quick redo. Many years ago, the township board met twice a month, and if we're coming to that point, I would leave it to the office or the elected officials to make that determination that we need to go to 2 meetings a month,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah, and I'm trying not to do it, but it's to the point now where we have so much on there that we need to keep it going. We have another special meeting for our public hearing. I can sneak a few things in there. November's gonna be a full meeting again. And it's us talking and working in the committees and coming in the office and talking that makes these meetings go fast. But it's a lot of work that has to take to get it done. So I just wanted to thank you all for making it go this fast. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. Any questions? Roll call? No. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, stay here.
Here's my,